As the school year drew to a close, a new student, Anthony, joined the class. All the girls vied for his attention. He was handsome, sociable, and quickly befriended everyone. However, he was reserved and shy around Jane, who also found herself drawn to him. She liked him a lot but couldn't bring herself to make the first move. Graduation night arrived, and Jane danced with everyone. Anthony, however, stood to the side, his eyes fixed on her. As the popular song played, he asked her for a dance. During the dance, Jane felt his desire for her. Her entire body seemed to ignite with a fiery passion. Without a word, they sneaked away, caught a ride, and headed to the sea. It was a hot, moonlit night. He became her first love. They swam, threw coins into the sea, vowed eternal love, and rejoiced in the belief that nothing could tear them apart. But they were torn apart, and rather quickly. Jane's family decided that she would go to her mother's brother, Jack, to apply to law school in his city. With Jack's help, everything was already arranged. They said their hasty goodbyes, promising to write and call each other. They parted ways, and not for just 1 year. Naturally, Jane got accepted into the law program. From time to time, something stirred in her heart, a mix of young love and nostalgia for her childhood, all tangled up with resentment over Anthony's silence. In her 5th year of university, she was betrothed to Michael, a man 10 years her senior. He was a skilled charmer, intelligent, charming, and wealthy. All of this came crashing down on Jane, like a starry shower. Within half a year, they were married, and their life together began, resembling an eternal celebration. Unfortunately, their sex life was rather dull and monotonous, but Jane chose to overlook it. Trouble came from an unexpected source. Michael was eager for an heir, but Jane couldn't get pregnant. Examinations revealed that the issue lay with Michael, and there was little hope for a biological child. This news became a tragedy for him. He withdrew into himself, often coming home in the early morning hours, sometimes drunk, and female voices on the phone would ask Jane to call Michael back. She would rage and try to pick fights, but he remained unaffected. When Jane brought up the topic of divorce, he beat her. He said that if she dared to mention it again, he would kill her. That's when she realized that to him, she was just one of the possessions that made up the backdrop of his life, albeit a beloved one. Jane spent a week in bed recovering. He tended to her, apologized, and she forgave him, but they continued to deal with their family drama separately. She attended the high school reunion, hoping to unwind and possibly see Anthony. She wanted to see him again. He was there alone. As the same song played, he asked her to dance, just like he had back then. After the dance, Jane followed him into the hallway. His kiss clouded her judgment. She was no longer in control of herself. They found an empty classroom, locked the door, and made love passionately. Jane felt like she would lose consciousness from the intensity of her desire and bliss. She could hear Anthony whispering in her ear, "I love you, only you, I love you, this is it," she thought. This is true love. The next day, Jane went home. 2 weeks later, she realized she was pregnant and her married life was over. She called Anthony, and after joyful hugs and kisses, she shared the news with him, only to be met with his blank stare. He started talking about the complicated housing situation and his job, making plans for her to run away to her parents. But she barely listened. Her hopes for happiness shattered like a soap bubble. He remained the indecisive boy from her youth, capable only of fleeting passionate gestures. Jane didn't need a man like that, and she told him so. Meanwhile, events took an unexpected turn. Michael announced that they were getting a divorce, and all the diagnoses about his infertility were nonsense. His mistress was pregnant, and it seemed they just weren't compatible. Jane fully understood the desperation of her situation. It said that it takes time to become a different person. Nonsense. she transformed into a scheming woman in an instant. She needed to find a way to keep her child, maintain her reputation as a respectable woman, and hold on to the comfortable life she had grown accustomed to. To do this, she had to get rid of Michael before he divorced her. Of course, she couldn't physically harm him. Instead, she found another way. After all, she had earned a law degree. Working at her husband's firm, she knew about some of his shady dealings. She couldn't expose them to law enforcement herself, but her uncle, the same one who had given her away in marriage to Michael, came to her aid. She told him everything, and he assured her that he would gladly secure her future once again. In short, Michael ended up under investigation and eventually received a prison sentence. Before the trial, Jane's uncle, through fair means or foul, transferred a significant portion of Michael's money and property to her name. He also made sure that Michael received the maximum sentence, and his friends couldn't get him out early. Jane's conscience is clear. In essence, her husband used her. Anthony used her to satisfy his infantile desires, and her parents made decisions for her. Now she is the master of her own life. She has at least a few years to establish herself as an independent woman, a role she quite enjoys. In the worst-case scenario, her uncle will help her.